This is turning out actually really good for me because, you know, I promised to do some videos from up in the wilderness here, and I'm a little bit higher up this time. It means it forces me to get time to get out and hike and run, and more movement feels really good. So I was thinking on the way over here, what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to keep it kind of short because the weather's changing and I need more time to get out now because I'm farther in tonight. And so I thought on the way up, what's most relevant and concise to related to our situation in the world right now with all that's happening, and can I talk about it without offending certain video platforms? So I'm going to try to do that, just make it short. So what I thought it would be relevant to talk about is fear, and the reason it's important right now is that the people that are running this planet, and in my opinion the agenda that they're following, is to exterminate life, not suddenly, and I'm sorry about the wind, I hope you can hear me. Not suddenly, because they could have killed us all overnight, but by the numbers, you know, like there's a protocol that they're following, like a ceremonial sacrifice, and I've come to the conclusion that has been clear for a number of years to me, that that's what they're doing. It's not a sudden extermination, it's step by step by step, and it's based on the doctrine of sacrifice that says if you kill an innocent being like an animal or a baby or a virgin or a spiritual teacher or somebody who's, you know, not guilty of anything, and you kill them exactly the right way, and in this case giving notices and hitting certain milestones at the right time and all that, then God is really happy with you. And my opinion is that the Satanists who are running this, and I'm not talking religiously, I'm saying for real Satanists, like obeying demonic orders from non-physical levels. I'm sorry if it sounds weird. You know, scientific inquiry has to be open, no preconceptions, nothing to prove, no ego involved, just whatever is true. And this is what I found to be true over many decades of investigation. And what they're doing is a ceremonial sacrifice, and the ceremonial sacrificial animal is us and them. It's a suicide mission, and all life on the planet. It's not population reduction, that's just a step, you know, like what the Georgia Guidestones talk about. That's not the goal, in what I've found out anyway. And I'm subject to error, but, you know, I'm not working for any big corporations or anybody that's going to try to twist what I have to say. I'm just telling you whatever I find. It could change tomorrow, but it's honest, and it's been hard won. I've done a lot of stupid mistakes and hopefully learn from them. But what I came out at the end is seeing that the world is being run into extermination, and that doesn't have to happen, but that's the agenda. And they've gotten to the point where they've got the technology and the organization and the servants all organized into different levels of awareness on a what you might call a need-to-know basis, and they're all just following orders right down to the bottom. And near the bottom levels with us ordinary people, those of us that are just following orders, most of us think we're actually doing good for the world by doing that, and that's not exactly true. But you know, the health enforcers and the police and military who are beating up people for not following certain interesting policies. I'm trying to keep this generic so we don't get thrown off any platforms, because I want to get this across to you, this idea. All these people, most of them think that they're doing good. The people who develop diseases and harmful treatments for them and stuff, they actually think they're serving humanity. They're not mostly bad people, but they've been brainwashed by what I think they call it education, you know, especially higher education, and it's covered their vision so that they don't see things clearly. They've been trained to refer to certain absolute sources of truth, like government agencies and health organizations and international bodies and things like that. And they don't realize that those are dishonest all the time, and they believe mainstream media, and I mean it goes on and on. But because of that organization and all the troops being in line, troops being all the way down to the civilians that are following orders too in their jobs, willing to do whatever they have to for a paycheck, now they think they're near finishing off the sacrifice. And as one of the sacrificial animals, I take exception with that and would like to see life not only survive, but come back to its potential normal state that hasn't been seen in known history. But I know it's there if we're brave enough to do what it takes to get it back. And what it takes is opening up, throwing off our own programming, our own brainwashing. Instead of saying everybody else is crazy and everybody else is, blind, we need to look at ourselves. Because if you break that in yourself, then you become an example for everybody else, and it spreads even without words by what's called resonance in the quantum physics field. Which is not a short video. That's a long story, and we don't want to go into that right now because the wind's coming up and the weather's changing. But I think the point that I want to make is, even though the bad guys and bad women and the whole group that wants to destroy life and is all excited because they think they're getting close, they have a lot of fear themselves, and because they live in it, they made some wrong choices themselves. Intrinsically, they're no different than us. And I know a lot of people violently disagree with me on that, but that's honestly what I've seen. I've seen on physical and non-physical levels both, that the internal spirit comes from the same source. It wasn't created as evil, it was created as pure spirit like we were. And it's imprisoned by its own programming. And anybody that gets that misfortune of having that happen by their own poor choices can start identifying as evil and do a really good job of portraying that. So at the top levels where the commands are coming from, which is not human, they know they have one weak spot. And I think it's really important for us to understand what that weak spot is. And I'm saying what the weak spot is you. And I've said this before, and I don't know if anybody follows me or doesn't think it's completely crazy, but we're not these costumes. These are conscious costumes. We're walking around in them, and they're wonderful, and they're magical compared to what so-called science thinks it knows about them, which is nothing, almost nothing. But inside is somebody who's actually animating it, and that's you, and you're not physical. You're just acting through this game piece, this conscious costume, as a physical being for the moment. And you're using a really advanced, I don't want to insult it by calling it a computer system, because it's really way beyond that. They call it mind, not brain. Brain's part of the body. I'm talking about mind. And mind is this amazing interface between you and this environment called the real world. And it's got massive power, not just to process information, but to project in frequency what affects physical outcomes. This is a really big deal. And we have little clues to it from Emoto's experiment and from the already done doctors in China and the Ho'oponopono Hawaiian system, which has been demonstrated to actually change the behavior of mentally ill people in a hospital for the better. And if you look around, honestly, we're living in a giant mental hospital right now where the patients and the staff are all completely insane. Well, almost all completely insane. And in the demonstration of Ho'oponopono, they were able to change the behavior of mental patients in a hospital without even meeting them face to face. And we've talked about that before. I may do another video just on Ho'oponopono and how to use it, because just saying the words involved in it doesn't do anything. It's got to have a certain frame of mind, and then it really does affect things. And at the top level, they're afraid that we'll get back in touch with these abilities that we've forgotten and learn to use them. They're not for destruction. They're not for going and destroying all the bad guys. That's not the point. That's missing the point dramatically, because that mentality has guided history on this planet for probably at least tens of thousands of years, and gotten us to the point we're at now, where we're too close to being wiped out and having this turn out to be just a lifeless piece of rock in space. And it's not too late to turn that around. But to turn it around, I mean, if God comes and saves us in 10 minutes, it's fine with me. That's great. People have been predicting the exact time that that's going to happen for a long time, and so far they haven't got it. So in the meantime, even if that does happen tomorrow, what we do today really affects our own spiritual growth in the long run. And we're not these little mortal beings that we think we are. There's something way more. And so even though this is in the real sense, this is a dream world that was projected out of consciousness, what we do in this dream really matters, and it has a permanent effect on us and everybody else. So the controllers want to finish the extermination plan, and for that they've got to have us stay unconscious of who we are. And I don't mean in belief. Even if your beliefs are right, they're not the same as experience. The experience has to become real enough so we can use the abilities we've lost and get them back quickly, which is possible. And one of the things that prevents that clarity and that waking up is fear. And, people talk about the positive uses of fear. If you're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, it's absolutely essential that you're terrified. And I'm saying, no, it's a really bad idea to be terrified. The adrenaline is good. That's what helps mothers lift trucks off their babies that are trapped, and all kinds of amazing feats. But adrenaline and fear are not the same. If you get the sensation of an immediate threat, you can get adrenaline that raises your strength, and if you can channel it, it does make you strong. But and in fact, you've got some adrenaline in you all the time. But fear is absolutely useless, and I've really looked at this carefully. People talk about fear of everything, from getting a disease, we've had a lot about that recently, to what they call dying. That's when you leave this particular costume and go to a different destination. It's not a bad thing at all. To fear of God, and I know a lot of my friends are very religious, and they would think that I'm completely out to lunch by not having fear of God, but I don't recommend fear of God at all. It's like, if you want the child to grow up to be a good person, the parents need to not raise that child with fear. Because if it's really done through fear, like, well, my mother loves me, but if I disobey the rules, she's going to have to kill me or torture me forever. I mean, what kind of kid does that produce? And in history, even in scriptural history, there are all these rebellions of people that were obeying out of fear. And once they thought they weren't being seen, immediately they left everything they had learned. That doesn't happen when you're raised by love. If you raise the child with deep love and wisdom, the child will die for you. And that applies to us as children of the source, or what people call God. So I'm saying fear of God is useless. If you don't have fear of God, but you have love, you're very careful not to transgress the real basics of ethical living. Not because you read it and you memorized, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's because you get in touch with how things work, and that we're all interconnected. I mean, like really deeply interconnected in a network. All life forms, all people. And whatever we do to somebody else is done to us. That's real. That's not a religion. Okay? And if you are aware of that, you don't require fear to do good things and to avoid evil. You have no use for it at all. You have an internal sense that wakes up. It's kind of what they call a conscience, but it's beyond that. And you think, if a thought comes up, if your mind is kind of running around in different directions and it comes up with a thought to hurt someone or to hurt any form of life that you don't have to, and I'm not talking about self-defense, but anything outside of that, proactive damage to other creatures and other people, immediately you feel repelled by it. You don't need to say, oh my God, is God going to punish me if I murder this other person? I mean, come on. You're supposed to have, hopefully, eventually some awareness and not stay at that really sub-nursery school level. You don't have to worry that God is going to punish you. You know, because of your connection to life, you never unnecessarily hurt anyone else. It's like you don't hurt yourself. That's yourself in another form. That's loving your neighbor as yourself, because you see, they are myself in a different form. So what makes everybody one being is where we all came from. Even if whatever roles we're playing right now, so-called good or bad, or mass villain, or really sincere person trying to do a good job, everybody is made out of exactly the same thing. There was nothing else to make people out of, or anything, except for the original substance that was spirit, and that's consciousness. That leads to a lot of really interesting ideas, and I don't have time to go into it right now, but maybe we can do some more videos on that if you're interested. For now, I'm saying you can do what you have to do without fear much better than what you can do with fear. You can be running away from a saber-toothed tiger, and if you're terrified, you won't look where you're going, and you could run off a cliff. If you keep your wits about you and keep still and centered inside, even with adrenaline, then you're not going to run off the cliff. And everybody's also got internal guidance that helps them not run off cliffs and tells them the direction to go. And if you're still inside without fear, you can hear it. It'll help you. So why are the rulers afraid that we might not have fear? Because that's one of the prerequisites that could let you get in touch with who you are. And I don't mean a belief. I keep repeating this because people think if they memorize, I am this, I'm this, I'm this, it's going to fix it. It doesn't fix it. It's like you feel the actual experience of walking around in a human body and you feel that's who I am. That's the kind of realistic feeling that doesn't depend on a belief. I can feel my arms and legs and walking around, and so that's who I am. I'm saying take that level of reality and put it into experiencing yourself as spirit, because it's who you are. And even though we're in this dream world far from our original home, sometimes another character in your dream tells you something that may be true and could help you. So that's what I'm, as a character in your dream, that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm not using these terms lightly or just haphazardly. There's a lot more deep meaning in what's going on here. I'm sorry the wind's making me messy here. But there's a lot more deep meaning than there looks like on the surface. And how do you get rid of fear? If you try to suppress it, it's counterproductive. And whatever emotion you just suppress because you don't like it, it's going to get stronger and it's going to explode out when you don't want it to. So how do you get rid of it? Well, you have to understand what it is. It's a projection. All this, I try to make short videos and I get into stuff that hopefully you find interesting but they're so deep, even though we're talking casually about it, they're so potentially life-changing that it's really hard to make the video as short as I plan to. But let me tell you something that'll convince you for sure I'm completely crazy. And that is that this physical reality that looks so solid is not, and it's part of this projection of consciousness. And where's that coming from? It's coming from mind. Ultimately from spirit, but it's coming through mind, because mind has control of all the information that defines forms and all that. And one of those projections that mind mistakenly got really good at is fear. So if you learn to communicate with mind, you can explain to it and help it like helping a child. We don't need the wind that's almost blowing me over. I hope you can hear. Mind is a forgotten child that you've got, and it's capable of two-way communication. And if you learn to do that and communicate to mind, explaining why we don't need fear anymore, we have other work to do, unconditional love, things like that, transforming our own life so that we can help transform the outside world, which is what the rulers are afraid we'll figure out. Mind can stop projecting fear. And if it does that, when it does that, because it will, whatever happens, you won't react with fear. And it's not because you're saying, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear. You don't have to do that. It just won't happen. You get closer to your normal state. And that's the beginning, and other things follow after that. Anyway, I hope this interests you. I'm trying to, come up with topics that are relevant to your life that you can actually use, and not just say, well, that was interesting, what's next, because time is short. The people that we talked about in the beginning of the video are planning to exterminate life 100%, including themselves, and most of their servants don't know that. They think that if they follow orders, that they'll be left as part of the elite remnant. That's not the plan. But if they were told the plan, they probably wouldn't be following orders. So they're not told. They're going to find out in the last part. So before we get to that, and it is coming closer in the schedule of the bad guys, it's really important we make some major changes that we've never made before. And you're the key person. You're like the center of your own movie from which it's being projected. And that's what gives you the power. Everybody's walking around with that potential, and they don't know about it. Most of us have no clue what that is. It's incredible power for good, not to go and destroy, the old stories in religion about destroying 1,000 people with 10 soldiers or something. That's a very nice soldier story, but it's not what we're here for. Destruction is not the point. It's awakening. And if you awaken yourself, even the people that are so nasty you could never even talk to them, they can be affected. But we have work to do to get to that point. So just wanted to bring that up for you to think about. Stay in touch with us at lostartsradio.com. That's especially lostartsradio.com/live. That's where you can see where we're still on the air. And I think most of the shows are embedded there, and there's a lot of articles and videos that are posted almost every day on many relevant topics. We have shows on Sundays with guests that we started in the very beginning quite a few years ago. Incredible guests that I feel very privileged to get to even talk to. And lots of those are coming up. So stay in touch on the site. If you want, this is all commercial free, so if you want to help us stay on the air and you've got resources to do that, if you think it's a worthwhile thing, then go to lostartsradio.com and use the donate button there, or the subscribe star link, either one. Or there's a mailing address if you want to do it old-fashioned way by mailing in a check or something like that. I'm sorry to ask for money, but I haven't figured out how to do this with no money yet, although we've almost proven that we're doing it unintentionally. but we've got lots of projects on hold because they're waiting for funding. And I'd be happy to talk to people about that. In fact, what I've been saying recently is that any of you friendly billionaires out there, that a lot of people believe that the billionaires are not friendly, they're not benevolent, they are not capable of normal thought anymore. And I'm not ready to accept that. So even for any people that are in that category, even if you don't want to help us at all, it's fine. I would like to suggest to you some things that need to be done urgently. Set up parallel civilization that's needed before the world falls apart. So talk to me. I won't even charge you for my time if you're a friendly billionaire. I'll say, look, here's how to do a parallel education system, a real system of science, a real system of agriculture. All these are pieces of the puzzle, and we need to not wait until the old world is gone to try to build a new one. It should be happening now. And some of our guests have actually been talking about it and are doing it. So there will be more about that on the shows that are coming up. I think that's about it. So the main thing is, don't underestimate who you are. Don't think it's limited to a belief system. It has nothing to do with that. It's inside you. Everything's inside you. And I'm saying, let's take guidance from the bad guys who are saying, don't wake up, don't wake up, don't wake up. Say, thank you, that means I should wake up. Yes, and that means self-awareness. Not just becoming aware of what's going on in the world, but becoming aware through experience of who you are. Once that happens, it can't be stopped. It's very contagious in a positive sense. And even without saying a word, you can spread it to other people. So there's massive work to do. That's the reason we started the project at Planetary Healing Club, planetaryhealingclub.com. If you're brave enough to be working on yourself and moving from the intellectual realm, using that, but moving from there beyond it to the experience realm, you might want to join us there. And there are small dues, that's true. It's the only thing that's really keeping us going right now financially. It goes to our nonprofit that supports the radio show and all the videos, and hopefully the other projects that we get to start, a new school and things like that. But if you get there and you hate it or you're not interested and you pay for a month and during that month you decide you don't want it, I don't want the money. The money is entirely secondary. I'll refund it if you want. In the first month, not 10 years after you join, okay, obviously, but we're using the money, but the main thing is try to encourage each other to move off the usual way of perception and get back in touch with who long ago you knew you were, and live the rest of your life as that incredible being instead of a person of limitation and fear. That's an invitation, okay? But if you don't want to do it with us, that's fine. Do it some other way, or with a friend, or by yourself. You have everything inside yourself that you need for it. You don't need me or anybody else. It's just, sometimes it's nice to do it in a group environment where everybody's actually trying to do the same thing. Whatever you feel is right, but value yourself. You can't love anybody else if you are hating yourself. It doesn't work. It's not that God won't let you. It's the way this place is put together. There's a deep law on the physical level and some others that whatever you give to somebody else, you give to yourself. So you're cursing other people, you're cursing yourself at the same time. Inevitably. The bad guys, some of them are really intelligent, but they're not smart in this sense. They're really hurting themselves. They will eventually wake up and you can help them do that. So, you want to love everybody, what you need to do, because its spirit is in everybody, especially the people who are really off on the wrong track. They need it too. And you can't do that if you're condemning yourself for mistakes you made in the past or anything. They don't need to guide the rest of your life. So, take a positive approach. Be nice to yourself. Love yourself. Care about the world. know that you're the reflex point to healing the rest of everything on the outside. I gotta stop because I gotta get home before it freezes again. So thanks for being here. I really appreciate getting to share this stuff with you, and I hope you can use it. And I'll see you next time. Take it easy.